YouTubers, and welcome to another Throwback Thursday review. And I'm looking at the Time Crash set, which was the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive for 2008, featuring the 10th Doctor and the 5th Doctor. So this set was announced after the classic series figures were announced themselves. However, the set came out just before the first wave of classic series figures. I think they came out around August and this set came out in about July. What we had here was the 5th Doctor, which was technically the first classic series Doctor that we had got in action figure form. So let's begin, as ever, by taking a look at the packaging. So the figures come packaged in this plastic clamshell packaging, which started in 2008. I remember that there was a lot of complaints from people about this. They weren't so keen on it because the clamshell packaging is very tricky to get into. You need a pair of scissors, but the whole point of it was that the whole thing was meant to be recyclable. Despite that, however, little has changed from the previous packaging. We still have the TARDIS outline, which in itself has been captured with the clamshell packaging. We also have the card at the front. This time we have it in a hexagonal shape. The set is just called Time Crash, and we have a picture there of the 5th Doctor and the 10th Doctor from the episode. And we also have a few other elements. We have the San Diego Comic-Con 2002 logo at the top. It also notes that this set comes with a free Top Trumps Doctor Who card. And we also have a sticker at the back of the box saying that this is number 2502 of 3000. Moving on to the back of the box, we have a screen grab from the episode, and we also have a new biography about the episode itself. So let's begin by taking a look at the two figures out of the box. First things first, we have this new version of the 10th Doctor. It is the exact same body that was used since 2006. Just repainted with the blue and red suit and the red and white shoes. We also have a different shirt and tie. So if we just quickly go through, we have articulation at the head, which can't quite do 360-degree turns simply because of the shirt. It just stops it from moving all the way, and you'd probably get some nasty scratches on the neck. The shoulder joints are just simple swivel joints that can do 360-degree turns. The elbow joints can swivel up and down. There's no articulation at the wrists. The waist can do 360-degree turns as well. The hip is a T-crotch joint, so the legs can move forward and slightly backwards and out to the sides. And we also have articulation at the knees, so they can pivot back and forth. So it's the standard articulation for all of our normal 10th Doctor figures. The 5th Doctor, on the other hand, has slightly more articulation going on. Again, articulation at the heads that can turn left and right. This, again, also has this element of if you push it too far one way, you will get these nasty marks on the neck, so you don't really want to try and move it 360 degrees. Again, we have swivel joints at the arms that can go 360 degrees back and forth. We also have articulation at the biceps on this figure, which is something that all of the classic Doctors had. We also have articulation at the elbow, so they can pivot up and down. And articulation at the wrists, which can do 360-degree turns. And articulation at the waist, which again can do 360-degree turns. The same T-crotch style joint here, which allows the legs to go forward and out to the sides. We also have articulation at the thighs, which can do 360-degree turns, as you can see, and articulation at the knees that pivot back and forth. So if we start off with the head sculpt for the 10th Doctor, it's just the same head sculpt that had been used from 2006. They never changed it until very near the end when we got the End of Time figure, which was all battered and bruised, but we never really got a clean version of the Doctor with his new spiky hair. So he does have his very early 2006 hair, the Christmas Invasion hair really, which is the parting swoops to the side. It's a good likeness of David Tennant, you can see who it is. We've got some very good sculpting work with the hair and the sideburns. The hair itself is just painted a flat brown colour. Moving down to the jacket, again, just the same as the previous sculpts. You can see all the pockets have been sculpted, the buttons and the creases of the jacket, so it does look quite good. One thing that people didn't like with this is the way that the jacket is quite high, so you can't see much of his shirt and tie, which when you watch the episodes you can see a bit more of it than that. The jacket itself has just been moulded in a blue plastic with the red pinstripes printed on. If we look at the shirt and tie of what we can see of it, the shirt is a dark burgundy colour and the tie is slightly lighter than that, and then we have these circular patterns, kind of similar to the patterns that we have on the normal release. So that is the major difference with this figure, is the shirt and the tie are a different colour, but unfortunately you can't really see an awful lot of it. And then with the arms, again, nicely sculpted with the creases here and there and the buttons on the cuffs. And again with the trousers, quite baggy towards the bottom, which allows for all these folds and creases. And then the shoes have been painted red and white, and you also have the blue line around the back. So overall, there isn't an awful lot to say about the 10th Doctor. The paint apps with the pinstripes are all very neat and tidy. The paint apps on the shoes are good. You know, the face is all right. It's just a very standard 10th Doctor figure. And of course, you've got the alteration with the shirt and the tie. The reason a lot of people bought this was for the 5th Doctor. Now, the 5th Doctor in this set was very different from the 5th Doctor that would be released in Wave 1 of the Classics line. The trousers are different, the jumper's different. Now, there was a lot of controversy when the first wave of classic figures were announced, because there was not going to be any celery on the 5th Doctor. So many people went out of their way to try and buy this set because the 5th Doctor has his celery. Unbeknownst to everyone, however, the 5th Doctor in the classic line would eventually get his celery on his season 19 costume. And not only that, he would get it on his later costume, he'd get versions with his hat, and all of them would retain the celery. So after such a big hoo-ha about not having celery, and I remember, if you go back and watch my 5th Doctor review when I was very young, you will see that I got quite annoyed about that as well. But not to worry, it all turned out fine in the end. But let's take a look at the 5th Doctor, which was the very first classic Doctor that we saw in this range. So the figure itself is just the 5th Doctor that we've now seen released on numerous occasions, but slightly repainted. So the head sculpt, a pretty good likeness of Peter Davison. You know, you can see who it is. He does have better paint apps than the 10th Doctor. If we look at the sculpting and stuff on his hair, very nice sculpt. But the hair has more than one tone compared to the 10th Doctor. You have this dark brown with this lighter wash over the top to give it a bit more depth and texture. Moving down to the shirt and the collar, you have all of the elements such as the question marks, the red on the inside of the collar, and the red on the button. Now actually, the button on Peter Davison's shirt was never red. It's actually just the thread on the white shirt is red. So I've never really been sure why they did that. Maybe it was just to make the figure stand out a bit more. Who knows? So if we come to the jumper, which is different from the version that we get on the classic figure. Now the classic figure has a red stripe here, another red stripe, and a black stripe. That's incorrect. It should be brown, red, black. Here it's blue, red, black. Why it's blue, I have absolutely no idea. It's actually brown in the minisode. Very odd indeed. The sculpting for the jumper though, that's been very well done. You can see that it has this very good knitted texture. We also have the celery, which doesn't really look like the celery in the episode, but they've done a pretty good job. As you can see, that's just painted in a couple of different tones. You've got sort of the very pale green stem, almost white, and then you have the lighter green leaves, and there's a bit of a dark green wash over the top of that. So it does do the job, and it looks rather good. The coat itself has just been painted beige, and you have the red piping. Unfortunately, in some areas, the red piping isn't very well done. In certain areas, there's a lot of paint bleed, and a lot of paint bleed. I've not actually seen this figure for quite a while, because it's been displayed, hung up on my wall, out of sight, and I can only sort of see it from afar. So I haven't seen this paint bleed in a long, long time, and it is pretty bad. He also has some smaller details with the buttons and the buttonholes that have been sculpted. The buttons themselves have been painted in a slightly light tan colour as well. And on the back he has a variety of seams, and you can see more of that red piping. The jacket though has not got the split, and there are no buttons across the back either. And again, the arms have got some nice sculpting detail with the creases, and also the buttons and the piping of the cuffs. The trousers are based on the 5th Doctor's later trousers, because that is what he's wearing in the Time Crash minisode. The reason being is because I don't think the original ones exist anymore. Either that, or they're just far too small for Peter Davison, so he's got to wear Colin Baker's adapted version. And you can see here that the colour is sort of orange with these black stripes. That would then change later on. I think they went for a more of a pinky colour, and the width of the stripes I think was slightly less thick, and it all looked a slightly bit more neater and far more accurate. And also the shoes are slightly dirtier than the classic version. Both figures come with an accessory, their corresponding sonic screwdrivers, which is quite strange because there is a big point made in this episode that the Fifth Doctor doesn't carry a sonic screwdriver because it gets destroyed in the Visitation. The 10th Doctor sonic screwdriver is quite rubbery, but you can see it's nicely detailed. It's in the extended mode, and you can see the grey of the main handle, the black at the tip at the end, and also the blue light on the other end. With the 5th Doctor sonic screwdriver, it's just the standard sculpt, painted silver, the slight bit of gold at the top, and then the emitter has been painted red. Now, of course, one of the issues that people have with this set with the 5th Doctor was that the head was a very young Peter Davison as he looked in the old series, not how he looked in the minisode itself. Now, the reason for this was because there was no money to re-sculpt the 5th Doctor's head to make it look like an older Peter Davison. It just would have cost too much money. And I believe they did say they tried to do some paint applications to this existing sculpt to try and make it look older, and they said it just looked awful. So in the end, they just decided, well, look, this is how the 5th Doctor should have looked in Time Crash if it hadn't have been for Peter Davison's natural aging. I wasn't really bothered about that when the set came out. I was just very excited to have a 5th Doctor figure, and also one that had the celery. Now, there was also another big hoo-ha with this set. So originally it was announced as the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. People, such as myself, went along trying to find versions on the secondary market where they'd be able to buy it so that they wouldn't miss out. Now, I actually went onto eBay. I found someone who was going to San Diego Comic-Con, and he said, look, I'm going to get X amount of these things, and you basically pre-ordered it, and then once you got it, he'd ship it out to you. So that's what I did. I think the set, all in all, cost me about £30, including postage, which actually isn't too bad considering that it did come from America, and a 2-pack like this was about £25 generally anyway, so it isn't too bad now that I come to think of it. At the time I thought, my god, this is so expensive. But then of course we would get the 1st Doctor set and the 2nd Doctor set and the John Pertwee sets, the 3rd Doctor with the Sea Devil and stuff, and they were all £25, so this actually wasn't that bad. What was annoying, however, after people like myself had gone off and bought this thing, was that Character then announced, I think it was on Gallifrey Base, that they would actually have 100 of these sets, unmarked, that would be available by phoning them up and ordering directly from them. So there wasn't anything on the website saying, oh, order it here, or you couldn't buy it online. It was just, on this day, you ring up, first come, first serve. There are 100 of these figures, there are 100 of these sets available, and they're £15. So that was a real kick in the teeth for people like me who'd bought this set on eBay for double the money. Very angry. I remember being incredibly pissed off. And these versions of the set, which have been now known as the UK 100 variation, also didn't have the San Diego Comic-Con mark. It also wasn't numbered, and it didn't have a top trumps card, if I remember rightly. So it was very much a blank version. As such, that therefore makes it more rare than the normal version, than the San Diego Comic-Con version, because there were 3,000 versions of those, but this was a very limited, unmarked 100 edition. I have heard stories that there was actually more than 100, but that was what we were told, so I'm not 100% sure on that, but either way, it was a very exciting set. And I remember my version of the set arrived on the same day that I went to see The Dark Knight when that came out in 2008, so that was a very exciting day. I was literally just about to leave the door, the postman arrived, and there it was, the very first 5th Doctor figure. Incredibly exciting. It was just on the eve of the classic figures coming out themselves, and it was very exciting. We had the classic Daleks, and then we had a classic 5th Doctor. So, thank you very much for watching this video, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. This is quite a different set, as you all know. Thank you for whoever suggested reviewing this. The one thing that really has remained sort of very exclusive is the 10th Doctor, which is the slightly different shirt and tie. But other than that, it's a great set. It also looks back at a time when the range was just about to expand into the classic figures, which no one was expecting. So thank you for recommending this set to review, because I haven't looked at it in many, many years. And thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon for another Throwback Thursday review.